She was supposed to walk down the aisle until a car crash stole that dream just weeks before her wedding. He was just a stranger with a tool belt and a quiet grief of his own. When he saw her crying on her front steps, he didn't ask questions. He just started building. He thought he was fixing a ramp. He didn't know he was building a way back to hope for both of them. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? The sun was too bright for a morning like this. It hit the pavement in sharp streaks, turning the cracked concrete into something that shimmered like heat wasn't already clawing at every inch of her. Maya sat at the edge of her driveway, legs folded in the chair like they didn't belong to her anymore. She hadn't cried when the doctor said, "Incomplete spinal cord injury." She hadn't cried when her dance company sent flowers, but not a contract renewal. She hadn't even cried when her wedding planner offered to pause everything until things stabilized. But now, with a crumpled envelope in one hand and silence filling the house behind her like it had a right to, she cried. Not loud, not theatrical, just the slow, hollow kind. The kind that crept down your face like it had waited long enough to be seen. Across the street, a rusted pickup truck rumbled into park beside a weathered mailbox. The man who stepped out wasn't much to look at. Baseball cap pulled low, shirt clinging with sweat, one boot scuffed near the toe like it had lost an argument with a nail gun. He walked around to the bed of the truck, lifted a cardboard box with the logo of a local pantry, and moved toward the house next door. He wasn't looking for her. That much was clear. But he saw her, saw the gown bag hanging lopsided on the porch railing, the ribbon still tied around the hanger like it hadn't been abandoned 2 days ago. Saw the wheels of her chair angled just off the pavement, like she'd tried to go inside and changed her mind. Saw her hands trembling around a piece of paper she kept folding and unfolding, over and over, like maybe she could erase what was written if she just kept moving. He paused at the curb, one foot on the grass, one still in the street. He didn't say anything. She looked up, startled, swiped at her face like shame could make her invisible. He stayed where he was, shifting the box in his arms like it might offer cover. "I'm fine," she said. The words cracked on the way out. He didn't nod, didn't offer some polished line about how things get better. He just looked at the wheels beneath her, the gravel scraped raw near the front step, the sharp slope leading to the door. "No ramp," he said. She blinked. "Was supposed to be." He set the box down and stepped forward. The silence between them stretched. "I build things," he said. "You need one?" She hesitated. Her voice came smaller this time. "You always stop for strangers crying on their driveway." He looked at her for a long second, then down at the ground, then back. "Only when they're sitting where hope used to be." Then he turned, walked back to the truck, and pulled out a measuring tape. The slope from the driveway to the front door wasn't long, but it might as well have been a mountain. Cracked concrete gave way to 3 uneven steps, one with a rust stain that bled like something had tried to rot through. Maya sat at the base of it, staring up like she was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't want to be solved. Her wheels couldn't climb. Her arms weren't strong enough yet. And her pride had already taken too many hits to ask for help again. Ben stood a few feet back, holding the tape measure like it was a peace offering he wasn't sure she'd take. He'd just finished getting the dimensions. He hadn't asked. He just started measuring the slope and the width between the doorframe, like it was obvious, like it was the kind of thing a person should just do when someone's stuck outside their own life. "You really don't have a ramp," he said, voice low but certain. She didn't look at him. "It was supposed to be done last week?" He waited. She didn't explain. "Fiancé?" he asked, careful. She finally looked up, jaw clenched. "He was working on it. Said he'd finish after the bachelor weekend." She paused, swallowed hard. "He hasn't been back since Monday." Ben said nothing. Let the silence fill in what she didn't want to say out loud. She was stranded, alone, left behind, not just by her body, but by someone who'd made her promises under soft lights and expensive champagne. He crouched down by the lowest step, ran a thumb along a splintering edge of wood where someone had half installed a railing and never finished. He stood slowly, dusting his hands off on his jeans. "I can build it," he said simply. "Won't take long. Materials will run cheap. I've got most of what I need in the truck." Maya blinked at him like she wasn't sure he was real. "I don't have money for that." "I didn't ask for money." Her mouth pulled tight. "Look, I don't need pity. I don't need some guy trying to fix my life because he thinks a ramp makes up for a wheelchair." Ben's gaze stayed even, steady. "This isn't about pity," he said. "It's about the fact that it's supposed to rain tomorrow, and you shouldn't have to pray your arms hold long enough to drag yourself up 3 steps. She looked away, but her breath caught in her chest like she'd forgotten how to inhale without breaking. "I'm fine," she muttered. "Then let me help anyway." He didn't move, didn't pressure, just waited. Something in her shoulders gave in, not collapsed, not shattered, just softened. She exhaled slowly and nodded once. "All right," she said, "but I'm holding the damn nails." The lumber arrived in the back of Ben's truck, sun-bleached boards, a bucket of rusted nails, and a heavy, silent kind of purpose. He didn't knock on her door, didn't ask if she still wanted the help. He just started unloading, boots crunching on gravel, arms full of wood that thudded gently as he laid each piece down beside the front steps. Maya watched from the porch, wrapped in an old cardigan that didn't fit right anymore. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers still swollen from where the chair handles had rubbed them raw 2 days back. She didn't say much, just nodded when he looked up, then looked away when he didn't smile. They worked in silence, not the awkward kind, but the kind that holds room for too much. Ben's hammer fell in rhythm. Measure, mark, strike. He didn't hum, didn't curse, didn't fill the air with the kind of noise most men do when they're trying to make themselves bigger than the job. He just worked, steady and quiet, like the act of building something useful was the only language he still trusted. Maya flinched once when a board cracked wrong. The sound ricocheted against the porch rail, sharp and final. She didn't ask if it was fixable. He didn't explain. He just grabbed another. In the truck, a small figure shifted, bare feet drawn up on the passenger seat, a paperback held like a shield just beneath her eyes. Ellie. She watched Maya with the cautious curiosity only a child could carry, half wonder, half worry. Every few minutes she flipped the page, even when it was clear she wasn't reading. The book was just something to hide behind. At one point Maya turned and caught her, just a glance. Ellie ducked lower. Ben followed her gaze but didn't say anything. He didn't introduce his daughter, didn't offer a reason why she was here on a hot weekday afternoon with no school in sight and a library book 3 levels above her age. He just kept sawing. "I thought kids hated quiet," Maya said softly. Ben paused, looked at her. "She's used to it," he said. "Been a lot of quiet lately." Maya nodded, the kind of nod that said she understood more than she wanted to admit. The sun dropped low behind the house. The ramp started to take shape, angle set, frame steady. It wasn't pretty yet, but it was coming together, like maybe the silence between them wasn't just emptiness. Maybe it was permission. The note was folded too neatly. No envelope. Just her name, Maya, scrawled across the front in handwriting she'd once traced along the curve of his spine at midnight. She found it in the mailbox, tucked between a furniture catalog and a coupon for something she didn't need anymore. The morning was hot already. Sweat clung to her back beneath the tank top she hadn't had the heart to change out of in 2 days. Her fingers hesitated, hovered over the paper like it might bite. She unfolded it slowly. 6 lines. That's all. "I'm sorry, I can't do this. I thought I could. I love you, but not enough to do it like this. I need space. I hope one day you understand." Jay. Her name wasn't even in the goodbye. She stared at the words until they blurred, until the paper curled in her hands and the morning sun burned too hot on her skin. Her throat closed. Not with tears, not right away, just a pressure, deep, sharp, like her ribs had forgotten how to expand. The wheels of her chair bumped against the front step as she turned hard. She didn't call for help, didn't care that the ramp frame was still half done, raw boards and stubborn nails waiting for their purpose. She dropped the note in her lap and shoved the wheels forward, fast and clumsy. The porch rail caught her elbow. She hissed, but didn't stop. She made it to the edge of the driveway before the sob broke loose. Not delicate, not cinematic, just raw, loud, ugly. The kind of sound that echoed against concrete and clung to the morning like humidity. Ben had been around the side of the house, hammering something into place with slow precision. He heard it, dropped the hammer without thinking. When he came around the corner, he didn't ask what was wrong. He saw the note, saw her shaking hands, saw the way her whole body, hunched like grief, had settled into her spine. He didn't say he was sorry, didn't offer cliches or try to explain what no one could explain. Instead, he walked to the pile of tools, picked up a screwdriver, and held it out to her. She looked at him, eyes red and glassy. He didn't flinch. "You can still build something," he said. Then he placed the tool gently on her lap and walked back to the frame, slow, steady, waiting for her to follow. The screw slipped twice before it caught. Maya's hand shook harder than she wanted it to, wrist trembling like it didn't belong to her anymore. The drill felt heavier than she remembered, like grief added weight to everything, even plastic and steel. Ben stood a few feet away, crouched low, leveling the next board. He didn't say a word, didn't correct her grip, didn't reach out when the screw spun sideways and scraped the wood. Just waited, quiet and still, like the only thing he needed to hold up right now was space. She repositioned, took a breath that caught halfway down her throat, pressed harder this time. The screw bit into the board with a slow, aching whine. Click, click, drive. It went in crooked, her face flushed. Not from the heat, not just. She sat back, wiping her forehead with the back of her arm, swallowing the frustration that threatened to rise up like a wave. This wasn't what she wanted to be doing. She wanted to be in a dance studio, barefoot and balanced, not on a porch in the middle of a summer she didn't ask for, trying to drive screws into wood she didn't even believe would hold. "I can fix it," she muttered, reaching to back it out. Ben looked over, eyes steady beneath the brim of his hat. "It's fine," he said. "It's in. But it's crooked. So are half the boards on this house." She let out a breath that was almost a laugh and almost a sob, somewhere in the middle. He went back to work, hands moving with practiced ease, his hammer striking with a rhythm that calmed more than it startled. The air between them wasn't soft, not yet. It still crackled with the things they weren't saying, loss and failure and the sharp ache of starting over. But there was something else in it now, too, something that lived in the grain of the wood and the steadiness of motion, in the sound of tools, in the smell of sawdust. He didn't offer praise, didn't comment on the screw. But when he passed her another one, he did it without hesitation, like he expected her to keep going, like he knew she would. The morning sun had just started to push through the slats of the porch rail, catching the fresh wood of the ramp like it was proud of what had begun. Maya sat at the top, a blanket across her lap, coffee cooling beside her. Her hands still ached from yesterday, the pads of her fingers tender where the drill had bitten too hard, too long. But she didn't mind the ache. It was proof she hadn't disappeared. She heard the truck door open before she saw her. Ellie hopped out barefoot, holding something flat and curled at the edges, paper that had been folded and folded again, its creases soft and worn. She hesitated at the bottom step, then climbed 2 stairs before stopping, arms clutched tight to her chest. "I made you something," she said, voice small but clear. Maya blinked. "For me?" Ellie nodded and held it out, arms stretching across the space between them. Maya leaned forward and took the drawing carefully, as if it might crumble. It was done in crayon, vivid and chaotic. Stick figures under a sky too big for the paper, flowers that didn't match and didn't need to. But in the center was a woman in a wheelchair, crown on her head, dress that trailed like fire, red, gold, blue. "You look like a queen with wheels," Ellie said softly. Maya stared at the drawing, and then, unexpected, sudden, real, she laughed. It wasn't delicate, it wasn't polite. It came from the gut, surprised her as much as it surprised Ellie. It sounded rusty, like something that hadn't been used in a while but still worked. The kind of laugh that caught in your throat and cracked something open. Ellie grinned. "I wasn't sure if I should draw the wheels, but I thought maybe you wouldn't want to pretend they're not there." Maya's eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry, not this time. "No," she said, folding the picture like a promise. "Don't pretend they're not there." From the yard, Ben looked up, saw the drawing in her lap, the way she held it like something sacred. He didn't ask what it was. He just kept hammering, quieter now. Like the sound of her laugh had built something he couldn't. The ramp was nearly done. Just a few boards left, a final railing to set in place. The sun hung low, stretched long across the lawn, casting shadows that made everything feel softer, more fragile. Ben sat on the porch step, sawdust clinging to his jeans, arms resting on his knees. His shirt was soaked through at the back, dirt streaked across the collar. Maya was beside him, wheels locked, the drawing Ellie had made still tucked into the crook of her arm like armor. They weren't speaking, not because there was nothing to say, because there was too much. Ben broke the silence first. "You ever lose something that was part of the plan? Like, so deeply woven into it that when it's gone, you forget how to move?" She looked at him, wary, then nodded once, slow. "My wife," he said, voice steady, like it wasn't the first time he'd said her name in past tense. "Maggie, 4 years ago, breast cancer, fast, angry." Maya didn't speak. "I kept working, had to. Ellie was 6, too young to know the details, old enough to notice what was missing." He paused, chewing on the inside of his cheek. "The thing they don't tell you about grief is how it doesn't just punch you once. It drips, slow, leaks into everything." She studied the lines of his face, the way his eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. "Some things break," he said. "Some things you learn to carry." Maya turned away. Her hands found the rims of her wheels, fingers tightening. "I used to dance," she said quietly. "Started at 5. Professionally by 18. Contemporary, modern, ballet, when I was feeling masochistic." Ben's eyes flicked to her but didn't interrupt. "It was my body, my language. I knew every muscle like a map." Her voice cracked. "And now it's like someone changed all the street names and ripped up the pavement." She didn't cry, not this time, but her breath stuttered. Ben reached beside him, picked up a piece of sandpaper, turned it in his hands. "Doesn't mean the map's gone, just means you get to redraw it." She didn't answer, but her hand eased, just a little, enough for the wheels to shift forward, 1 inch, then 2. And beside her, Ben started sanding again, quiet, patient, letting the night take its time. The rain came without warning, thick, fast, the kind that didn't ask permission. 1 minute the sky was just gray, the next it opened like it had been waiting all day to let go. By the time Maya realized how fast it was falling, it was too late. She was halfway down the ramp when the front left wheel caught something. Maybe a stone, maybe the same crack she'd rolled over a dozen times. But this time, it didn't move with her. It locked, and the tire slumped in a way that made her stomach drop. Flat. The chair tilted just enough to throw off her balance. She cursed, low and hard, gripping the armrests. The rain soaked through her clothes, plastered her hair to her face. She tried to shift backward, but the wheel dragged uselessly. Her palms slipped. A muscle in her shoulder pulled sharp and angry. She was stuck. No phone, no neighbors close enough to call out to. Her fiancé, ex she guessed now, wouldn't be driving up the road any time soon. The irony tasted bitter. She closed her eyes and leaned back, letting the rain come. It felt personal, not cruel, just relentless, like the world was trying to test how much she had left. She didn't hear the truck until it was nearly at the curb. Headlights cut through the sheets of rain, then the slam of a door, boots on wet gravel. "Maya?" Ben's voice, closer now, urgent. She looked up as he reached her, Ellie following close behind, hood up, eyes wide. "Jesus," he muttered, already crouching, hands checking the wheel. Flat. "I noticed," she said, teeth chattering. He didn't laugh, didn't scold. Just slid his arms under hers like he'd done it before, like it wasn't something to think twice about. "I'm fine," she started. "You're soaked." He lifted her. She hated how good it felt, how safe. Her arms went around his neck out of instinct, close, too close. His chest was warm against her, even drenched. They didn't speak. Ellie held the door open without being asked. Maya caught the girl's eyes, soft, unsure, watching. Once inside, Ben set her down gently on the couch, grabbed a towel from the back of a chair. Still, no one said how close it had been. No one said what it meant that he'd come back. But as he knelt to unlace her shoes, hands steady, her breath caught anyway. Because something had shifted, and they both knew it. The final nail went in with a low, solid thunk. Not dramatic, just enough to echo faintly in the quiet morning air. Ben stepped back, wiping the sweat from his brow with the sleeve of his shirt, eyes sweeping over the ramp like he was seeing something more than wood and screws. It wasn't perfect. The grain didn't always match. One railing leaned a little left if you stared too long. But it was steady, safe. It would hold. Maya sat at the top, hands resting lightly on the wheels, the morning sun warm on her shoulders. The scent of sawdust still clung to the air, mingling with the honeysuckle climbing along the porch rail. For a second, she didn't move, just stared down the gentle slope, the curve Ben had added at the bottom like he knew turning too sharp might feel like falling. "You gonna christen it or what?" he said, voice low, teasing but careful. She smiled almost, then pushed forward. The wheels rolled easy, smooth. The ramp didn't creak. The railing held when she brushed her palm along the edge. Halfway down, she felt her breath catch, not from fear, from something else. Ellie stood at the bottom, bouncing on her heels like the end of a movie was about to play. As Maya rolled to the grass, the little girl clapped her hands together, quick and joyful. "You did it!" she said, grinning wide. "You went so fast." Maya laughed. Not the broken kind, not the brittle kind, just soft, light, real. Then something shifted in her chest, unexpected and sudden. Her throat tightened. The edges of her smile wavered. She looked back up the ramp, toward the porch, toward the house. Her house. And something hit her. Not what was gone, not what had been taken, but what remained. The porch swing, still rusted but waiting. The hummingbird feeder she'd forgotten to refill. The woman she saw in Ellie's eyes. Brave, whole, still worth clapping for. She started crying. Not loud, not messy, just tears that came slow and steady, sliding down her cheeks without apology. Ben didn't say a word, didn't move. But from the porch, his eyes never left her, not once. The house still smelled faintly like cedar and lavender oil, traces of a life Maya had tried to hold together before everything cracked. The chipped mug collection lined the windowsill above the sink, mismatched and stained, each one a leftover from something. Dance recitals, street fairs, a cafe she once visited in Portland. She'd never meant to keep them, but they stayed. Survivors, like her. Dinner wasn't fancy. Just chicken soup, simmered in a pot too big for one person, and stirred more times than necessary. She hadn't cooked in weeks, not properly, not since the accident. But her hands remembered how to peel, how to season, how to taste and adjust without needing to measure. Ben and Ellie stood awkwardly in the doorway when she invited them in, boots tracking dust onto the tile. He hesitated like he didn't know if the house would accept him. Ellie slipped past with the boldness only kids and the kind-hearted carry. "You sure?" he asked, his voice low, uncertain. Maya nodded, ladling soup into bowls already set at the table. "It's hot, And I made too much. Besides, you built the ramp. Least I can do is feed you." He sat slowly, shoulders stiff. Ellie climbed into the chair beside him, feet swinging, eyes wide as she inhaled the scent. "It smells like real food," she whispered. Maya grinned, placed the last bowl down, and handed Ellie a spoon. "That's because it is." They ate mostly in silence, the clink of spoons against ceramic the only sound for a while. The soup was rich, warm, simple. Ben took one bite and closed his eyes like it caught him off guard. Maya noticed. "How long's it been since you had a meal someone else made?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "A while?" She nodded. Didn't press. Halfway through the bowl, he looked around. At the worn wood floors, the peeling wallpaper in the corner, the piano covered in dust. "It's a good house," he said. "It was supposed to be ours," she replied softly. "Now it's just mine." Ben's spoon paused mid-air. Doesn't mean it can't hold more than one story. Ellie smiled, dunking her bread into the bowl like it was treasure. And for the first time, the silence around the table didn't feel empty. It felt like a place to begin. The closet door creaked when she pushed it open, the sound sharp in the stillness of the house. Afternoon light slanted through the bedroom window, catching on the dust in the air like tiny ghosts refusing to settle. Maya's wheels clicked softly against the hardwood as she rolled forward, her breath tight, shallow. She hadn't been in this room in days, not really, not past the surface. The dress was still there, hung at the far end, wrapped in a plastic sheath that had dulled with time and silence. It swayed slightly from the ceiling vent's weak gust, as if it remembered how to move even if she didn't. She stared at it, the lace along the sleeves, the soft shimmer of the skirt. It was supposed to have been altered weeks ago, hemmed for dancing, for walking, for standing tall beside a man who had once knelt down in this very room and asked her to promise forever. Now forever was just a word stitched into something that no longer made sense. She wheeled closer, slowly. Her fingers tightened on the rim of her chair, knuckles going white. The hem of the dress brushed the floor, still pristine, untouched, waiting. She reached up, hand hovering just inches from the plastic, then stopped. Her arm trembled, not from pain, not just. From knowing what touching it meant, from knowing that once she let herself feel the weight of it in her hands, she wouldn't be able to pretend anymore. She'd have to admit that the life she built had unraveled somewhere between the crash and the silence that came after. That love wasn't enough. That dresses don't wait for people who can't walk down the aisle. Her hand dropped. She let out a slow, uneven breath and backed away, the wheels creaking as she reversed without taking her eyes off the dress. It stayed where it was, still perfect, still cruel. She left the closet open when she rolled out. The dress swayed again in the quiet, but this time it felt like a goodbye. The invitation came over coffee, between mouthfuls of oatmeal and quiet laughter, echoing from the porch. Ellie was the one who asked first. "There's a picnic," she said, her voice light and hopeful, "at the park after church. There's pie and games, and sometimes people bring puppies." Maya raised an eyebrow. "That a bribe?" Ellie grinned. "Maybe." Ben leaned against the porch rail, coffee mug in one hand, watching Maya carefully. "You don't have to, just thought it might be good." She didn't answer, just gave a tight smile and wheeled herself back inside, closing the screen door softly behind her. It wasn't that she didn't want to go, it was that she wasn't sure how to be seen like this, on wheels, alone, unbrushed by a man's hand on her back or fingers laced in hers. She could handle being broken in private, but in public, that was a different kind of naked. By noon, the house was still, quiet, no sound but the ticking of the wall clock and the whisper of the breeze through the open kitchen window. Maya sat at the table, staring at the half-finished cup of tea she didn't remember pouring. Then she looked down, at her hands, the faint dirt still under her nails from helping Ben sand the railing, the callus starting to form on her palm, the small, undeniable signs of someone showing up for her life again. She changed, not into anything fancy, just jeans and a blouse with soft sleeves and a pair of earrings that made her feel a little like the woman she used to be. By the time she got to the park, the sun had settled into late afternoon warmth. She rolled across the grass slowly, tires catching on the dips in the earth, breath caught somewhere between hope and panic. Children shrieked near the playground. Folding tables sagged under the weight of casseroles and lemonades and store-bought cupcakes. Someone played guitar near the trees. And there, near the picnic benches, Ben looked up and saw her. His face didn't change much, just softened. Eyes lit the way a porch light does when you come home late, but still expected. She nodded at him, cheeks flushed, fingers gripping her wheels tighter than necessary. "Hey," she said. And it wasn't just a greeting. It was a beginning. It started like all small-town rumors do, with glances, not stares, not yet. Just those quick, flicked looks over coffee cups and between grocery aisles. The kind where you're not sure if someone's watching until they turn away too fast. At the hardware store, a cashier smiled too wide and asked how Maya was adjusting. At the gas station, an older woman in a floral blouse paused at the pump to say, "Nice to see you out and about again, dear. Really is." The words came coated in sugar, but the tone beneath them cracked. Then came the whispers, not always behind her back, sometimes just loud enough to ride the wind. "She was supposed to marry that finance guy, right? The one with the Audi? Now she's building ramps with Ben Miller like it's a home improvement show." The bride and the widower, if that's not something out of a Nicholas Sparks novel, I don't know what is. Maya heard it at the farmer's market, two women near the honey stand, pretending to admire jars they weren't buying. "She's just, repurposing the wedding for someone new," one said, barely hiding her smirk. The other replied, "Or maybe Ben just likes his women broken. First Maggie, now this." Maya froze mid-roll, her spine locked up, breath caught hard in her throat. The words sank like stones, heavy, mean, familiar. She didn't wait for more, didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd landed a hit. She turned her chair hard to the left and rolled away, fast, gravel grinding under the wheels. She didn't look for Ben, didn't scan the crowd for Ellie. She didn't want comfort, not right then, not when the world still measured people by their scars. Behind her, Ben saw it happen, saw the way her body shifted, saw the sudden distance. He didn't chase. Not yet. Because some moments don't need saving. Some moments just need someone to wait at the edge until you're ready to come back. The ladder groaned under Ben's weight as he climbed, hammer wedged into the back pocket of his jeans, a single shingle clutched in his hand like a small, quiet mission. The roof had been losing pieces slowly, just one or two at a time, but storms didn't care how fast you patched things. They came anyway. From the deck below, Maya watched, arms folded, the breeze tugging at the corners of her shirt. She didn't say much, just listened to the sharp, rhythmic tap of nails driving wood into place, the kind of sound that felt like it belonged, like it was fixing more than it claimed. When he finally climbed back down, shirt damp with sweat and sawdust clinging to his sleeves, she rolled forward. "That was dangerous," she said, not smiling, but not scolding either. Ben shrugged. "Roof was already broken. I figured if one of us was going to fall through it, better me than you." She rolled her eyes, but it softened something in her chest. "You always throw yourself at problems like that?" "Only the ones that don't ask for help." They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't need filling. The light was starting to change, less harsh now, more forgiving. The sky streaked faintly with orange, as if the world was apologizing for what it had put them through. Ben leaned against the railing beside her. "You ever been up there?" She nodded. "Used to lie on the shingles and count satellites, when I could still balance with just my toes and not fall." He was quiet for a breath. Then, "You didn't lose everything." Her gaze dropped. "Feels like it." "You lost what couldn't hold you," he said. "That's not the same." Maya didn't reply, but she looked out at the street, then back at him, and something passed between them that wasn't romantic or easy. It was older than that, wiser. Two people standing in the rubble of what they'd been, daring to imagine something steadier. "You're good at fixing things," she said softly. "Some things," he answered. "The rest, I just try to hold steady long enough not to lose them." She nodded once, slow. That night when he left, she stayed out on the deck, watching the sky, counting whatever was still there. The church stood at the edge of town like it always had, whitewashed walls, crooked steeple, front steps worn smooth by years of weddings, funerals, and small-town Sundays. Maya sat at the edge of the parking lot, engine off, hands clenched around the wheel of her chair. Her palms were sweating, though the air was crisp and still. The building hadn't changed, but she had. She rolled forward slowly, wheels clicking over uneven gravel, every inch toward the door feeling like a mile. The wooden ramp that led to the entrance was new, cleaner than the steps, less worn. She hated that it felt like an invitation she didn't ask for. When she reached the door, she froze. Inside that building, she'd stood just weeks ago for the rehearsal, veil pinned, bouquet borrowed from the florist's sample shelf. She'd laughed in the pews, kissed her fiancé under the arch where they were supposed to say forever. Now the door was closed, and she couldn't open it. She reached for the handle and stopped short, arm shaking, her breath caught, trapped somewhere behind her ribs, and for a moment she was certain, if she touched it, something would crack. Something inside her would give way, and there wouldn't be anything left to hold it back. So she didn't. She let her hand fall. She turned the chair in a shaky half-circle, rolled back to the gravel, and parked beneath the large oak at the edge of the lot. The silence there was too loud, too much. And then it broke. Her shoulders hunched forward, fists clenched in her lap. The first sob came hard, sharp, ripped from her like it had been hiding in the deepest part of her chest. Then another, and another. Not the quiet kind, not the tears she'd learned to swallow since the accident. This was the kind that gutted. Ben's truck pulled in slow, tires crunching the gravel. He'd been heading to the hardware store, saw her car. Pulled in without thinking. When he spotted her, he didn't call out. He just walked over, crouched low beside her, not touching, not speaking. She looked at him, eyes red, breath ragged. "I couldn't go in." Ben nodded, voice steady but quiet. "Then don't." "I thought I was ready." "No one ever is." She dropped her gaze, tears still coming. It was supposed to be our beginning. He looked at the church, then back at her. "Maybe it still can be, just not in the way you thought." She didn't answer, but she didn't turn away either, and that was enough. Maya hadn't meant to leave the closet open. The dance bag was still there, shoved behind a stack of winter coats she didn't wear anymore, dust clinging to the seams like memory. The zipper had rusted at the corner, and the canvas was soft from years of sweat and movement, a different life sealed inside. Ellie found it while Maya was fixing tea in the kitchen. She wasn't snooping, just exploring, the way 10-year-olds do when the grown-ups forget to put up fences. The little girl appeared in the hallway like she'd unearthed treasure. "Are these yours?" Maya turned, the spoon in her hand, stilled mid-stir. Ellie held the shoes carefully, cradled in both palms like something sacred. The ribbons trailed like vines, one frayed, one still tied in a perfect bow. The leather was worn soft, the toe box scuffed from 1,000 turns. "They're ballet shoes," Ellie said, eyes wide. "Point," Maya corrected softly, "from when I danced." Ellie nodded solemnly, like she understood the weight of what she was holding. "Can I try them? Just to pretend?" Maya hesitated, a beat too long. Something lodged in her throat like a splinter. She hadn't touched those shoes in over a year, hadn't dared. But now, in a child's hands, they didn't feel like grief. They looked like possibility. She nodded. "Just be careful. They're older than they look." Ellie sat cross-legged on the living room rug and slipped them on. They were comically big. Her toes barely reached the front. But she stood anyway, wobbling, laughing, spinning in slow, wide circles that left the ribbons trailing behind her like petals. Maya watched, arms crossed lightly, something warm and sharp unfolding in her chest. Not envy. Not exactly. Something closer to awe. "They still look like they can fly," she murmured. Ellie paused mid-spin. "What?" "Nothing," Maya said, smiling. "Just keep dancing." And as the little girl twirled, clumsy and fearless, Maya felt something stir in her chest. Not sorrow, not longing, just the quiet realization that maybe not everything beautiful had to be lost. Some things just needed a new pair of feet to carry them forward. The rain had come steady all afternoon, tapping against the windows like an old song, trying to remember its tune. The living room lights were dimmed low, not out of mood or atmosphere, just habit, software, safe, the kind of light where things could bloom without needing to explain themselves. Ellie sat cross-legged on the rug, the two big ballet shoes abandoned nearby, replaced by socked feet and a look of wide-eyed attention. Maya faced her, chair angled slightly, arms loose at her sides. "I can't really show you the footwork," Maya said, "but there's more to dance than legs." Ellie nodded, serious. "Follow me," Maya said. She lifted her arms slowly, sweeping them through the air in soft arcs. Elbows bent like a ribbon was trailing from her fingertips. Her wrists flicked, gentle, precise. She moved like memory, familiar, fragile, but still there. Ellie mirrored her, a beat behind, a little stiff, but focused. Maya smiled just barely. "No tension, it's not a fight. It's a conversation." Ellie adjusted, looser now. Her arms followed the next set of movements, a loop, a lift, a slow reach across the chest. "Good," Maya said, nodding. "Now add breath to it. The air should move with you." Ellie tried again. This time her movement had rhythm. Not perfection, but grace. And from the hallway, silent, just outside the frame of the moment, Ben stood, one shoulder resting against the wall, arms crossed. He didn't speak, didn't make his presence known. He just watched. Watched his daughter move like she was discovering something that lived inside her. Watched Maya teach like she hadn't been shattered 3 weeks ago in a crash that stole everything below her waist. Her body didn't move the way it used to, but her spirit did. That part danced just fine. Ellie reached the end of the sequence and giggled, breathless. "Like that?" Maya nodded, heart full. "Exactly like that." She didn't know Ben was watching, or maybe she did and didn't care, because in that moment she wasn't broken. She was a teacher, a dancer, a woman handing something sacred to a child willing to carry it. And sometimes that was enough. The phone rang 3 times before it connected. Maya almost hung up after the second. Her thumb hovered near the red button, doubt screaming louder than her pulse. But then came the click, a soft breath, a pause. "Hello!" Sienna's voice was familiar, frayed at the edges from late nights and 3 kids under 10, but it still had that older sister steel, the kind that could cut or hold you, depending on the moment. Maya closed her eyes. "It's me." A beat of silence, then, "You okay?" The question cracked something in her, not because she didn't expect it, but because of how gently it was asked. Not, "Are you better?" Not, "Have you moved on?" Just, "You okay?" "No," Maya said. Her voice was thin but steady. "But I think I'm ready." Sienna didn't rush her. She never did. Maya swallowed hard, opened her eyes to stare at the dress bag hanging again from the closet door, unzipped now, the lace visible, the weight of it not as sharp as before, still heavy, but not unbearable. "I need your help," she said. "With what?" "With the dress?" Another pause, this one longer. "Didn't think you were still doing it," Sienna said softly. "I'm not," Maya whispered. "Not that wedding, not that aisle, but I'm not burning it down either." Sienna exhaled, something like relief tangled in the sound. "You want me to help alter it?" I want you to help me reclaim it, Maya said. Cut it if you have to. Stitch it into something I can move in, something that's mine now. There was quiet on the line, but it didn't feel empty. Then Sienna said, I'll bring the machine and wine. Maya let herself smile, just a little. Bring Patience too. I've got enough ghosts here already. I'll bring scissors, Sienna said. We'll snip them loose. When Maya hung up, she stared at the dress again, at the way it caught the morning light, dulled, but not ruined. She reached for it this time, fingers brushing the fabric. It didn't feel like loss anymore. It felt like the start of something she hadn't dared imagine until now. The question came just before sunset, when the house had gone soft with quiet, and the light stretched long across the floor. Maya was at the kitchen table, sorting fabric scraps with uneven edges, lace trimmings that Sienna had left behind, and a spool of thread that kept rolling toward the edge like it wanted to escape. The windows were open. The air was warm, carrying in the scent of earth and grass and something like peace. Ellie sat cross-legged on the rug nearby, sketching something in a notebook. Maya had learned not to peek until it was finished. The girl had a way of drawing the world that made everything seem a little kinder, a little less jagged. Maya didn't notice her watching until the pencil stopped moving. "Can I ask you something?" Ellie said, not looking up. Maya glanced over. "Always." Ellie hesitated, then closed the notebook gently. "Will you still have a wedding?" The words hung there, not cruel, not curious in the way some people asked, like it was gossip to be collected and whispered later. This was different. This was a child trying to make sense of grown-up heartbreak. Maya's breath caught. She set down the lace in her hands, rubbed her palms against her jeans, like that might ground her. She thought of the church, of the pews she couldn't face, of the dress now folded and pinned and cut into something she could actually wear, of Ben on the porch with his quiet steadiness, never asking for more than she could give. "Maybe not the one I planned," Maya said finally. "But yes." Ellie blinked. "Really?" Maya smiled. "Really? Even if it's not in a church? Even if it's in a backyard? Even if I'm rolling down the aisle instead of walking? Even if there's no white horse or cake with too many tears?" Ellie nodded slowly, then grinned. "Can I be your flower girl?" Maya reached over and tucked a stray curl behind the girl's ear. "I wouldn't do it without you." And somehow saying it out loud made it feel real. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. And sometimes that was all a future needed. The sun had just dipped behind the ridge when Maya rolled up the gravel path toward Ben's porch. The sky was still streaked with gold, that last quiet gasp of day before the dark settled in. Crickets had started their song early, and the hum of it filled the spaces between the creak of her wheels and the slow crunch of stone beneath them. She wasn't dressed for anything special, just an old gray sweater and the same jeans she'd worn when painting trim earlier. There was a smudge of something near her knee, maybe coffee, maybe dirt. She hadn't checked. What mattered was the envelope in her lap, cream-colored, thick, still warm from the tight grip she'd had on it the entire way over. Ben was on the porch, as usual. He sat with one boot up on the railing, a beer bottle resting against his thigh, his gaze somewhere in the distance, on the fields maybe, or the outline of the barn. He hadn't noticed her yet. That was fine. She needed the seconds. When she reached the first step, he turned. His eyes found hers instantly, not surprised, not expectant, just present. "Evening," he said, voice low. She swallowed, nodded once, then extended the envelope across the slats of the railing. "You're invited." He didn't move at first, just looked at her, then at the envelope like it might disappear if he blinked too hard. "What is it?" he asked, but his voice had changed, softer now, edged with something he hadn't let surface before. Maya tilted her head, smiled a little. "A wedding." Ben raised an eyebrow, took the envelope carefully, like it might be fragile. "Yours?" "Mine," she said, different this time, smaller, messier, real. He ran his thumb along the edge of the flap, not opening it. Not yet. She looked down at her hands, then back up. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it at all. Not after everything, but someone reminded me that just because something broke doesn't mean it's over. Ben leaned back slowly, gaze steady. You marrying someone I know? She smiled. It didn't shake this time. Not yet, she said, but I'm inviting him anyway. And with that, she turned, left him there on the porch, the envelope still unopened in his hands, and the night stretching out with more promise than it had in a long, long time. The porch was quiet long after she left, the kind of quiet that pressed in around the ribs and sat heavy behind the eyes. Ben held the envelope in both hands, elbows resting on his knees, fingers tracing the edge again and again like the paper might speak before he opened it. The sun was gone now, the sky dimming into that bruised blue that always came before a storm. Somewhere off in the distance, thunder rolled low. Not loud yet, just a warning. He stared at the envelope a little longer before finally slipping his thumb beneath the flap and easing it open. The paper inside was thick, folded clean down the center. No printed card, no gold lettering, just her handwriting, sharp, slanted, unflinching. Ben, if I'm honest, I didn't think I'd ever send this. But then again, I didn't think I'd still be here. Not after everything. The aisle looks different now, shorter, but heavier. And I don't want to go down it alone. Would you walk me? M. That was it. No explanation, no flourish. Just the truth, laid bare in ink. Ben stared at the words until they blurred. Not because of tears, not exactly, but because something in him had started moving, slow and deep, like earth softening after a hard freeze. He folded the note and set it on the step beside him. The thunder rumbled again, closer this time. Still quiet, still polite, but insistent. He looked out over the field where the wind had started bending the grass. He thought about Maggie, about the vows they'd written in a hospital room, about how sometimes love didn't ask for forever, just for one more brave moment. He looked at the note again, at her handwriting, the way she hadn't begged or pleaded, just asked, just hoped. And somehow that felt louder than any thunder he'd ever heard. He reached for his phone, thumb hovering over her number. Then he stopped. Let the moment sit. Let it breathe. Because some yeses don't come loud. Some yeses are quiet thunder, already rolling in before the sky even opens. Maya didn't expect the knock. It was just past 9, the air outside thick with the scent of damp soil and honeysuckle. Rain hadn't come yet, but the wind said it was close. She was in the living room, lights dimmed, a blanket pulled over her legs though the house wasn't cold, just quiet. The knock came once, then again, gentle, but certain. She rolled to the door slowly, heart doing that thing where it moved faster than reason. When she opened it, Ben stood there, his shirt damp at the collar, hat in one hand. His eyes were steady. No trace of nerves, but none of the usual calm either. He looked like a man who'd been walking circles with himself and had finally stopped. He didn't step inside. She didn't ask him to. They stood there for a moment, just the screen door between them and the night. I read it, he said. Maya nodded once. I figured. He looked down at his boots, scuffed and damp, then back at her. I wanted to say yes right away, he said quietly. Truth is, I did. In my gut. But it felt like I'd be skipping something if I said it too fast, like it wouldn't carry the weight it deserved. Her fingers tightened slightly on the rim of her chair, but she didn't speak. I've spent the last 4 years trying not to be asked for things I couldn't give, he continued, and here you come, asking for the one thing I didn't know I still had left. He stepped forward then, reached for the screen door and opened it, not to come in, just to be closer. Yes, he said, simple, clear, and full. It wasn't a dramatic swell of music, it wasn't a tear-stained declaration. It was better, quieter, realer. Maya's breath caught. Are you sure? She asked, voice smaller than she meant it to be. He gave her a look she hadn't seen on him before. Not pity, not pride, something steadier, a kind of knowing. "I don't say things halfway," he replied. "Not to you." And then, for the first time in a long time, they just stood there. Two people not trying to fix anything, just holding the moment, letting it matter. The scissors made a quiet, deliberate sound as they slid through the fabric, soft, not jagged, like the dress had been waiting for it. Sienna knelt on the hardwood floor, pins clenched between her lips, eyes focused with surgical precision. Maya sat in front of the mirror, her hands resting on the arms of her chair, trying not to breathe too hard. The dress had never been simple. Layers of lace and silk, delicate sleeves that now pooled uselessly near her wrists, a bodice that no longer hugged the same curves. It had been made for a version of her that didn't exist anymore, a woman who walked everywhere like the ground had been designed to meet her. Ellie sat nearby on a folded quilt, legs crossed, holding a spool of thread with the reverence of someone guarding treasure. She hadn't spoken much since they started, only watching, wide-eyed and completely still, like the scene unfolding in front of her was something sacred. "This part's going to have to go," Sienna murmured, gesturing to the lower hem. Maya nodded. "Cut it." "You sure?" "Yes," she said, stronger this time. "I don't need it dragging behind me like it's trying to catch up." Sienna smiled around the pins and clipped again. The dress fit differently now. The waist hit higher. The skirt no longer swirled to the floor but tucked gently around her hips, trimmed to allow movement, real movement. It didn't hug her the way it used to. It didn't need to. It rested. It allowed. It respected. Maya looked at her reflection and didn't cry. She expected to. She thought seeing it, the altered, stripped-down version of a dream she used to have, would hollow her out. But it didn't. The dress didn't feel like a memory anymore. It felt like a choice. "It's not the same," Ellie whispered. Maya glanced over, catching the girl's gaze in the mirror. "That's the point." Sienna stood, brushing fabric dust off her knees, her eyes soft and proud. "It looks like it was made for you," she said. Maya looked again, not at the imperfections, but at the woman sitting there, the one who stayed. "It is," she said. "Now it is." The church didn't look like it had when she left it. Maybe it was the light, softer now, pouring through the stained glass windows like the sun had finally forgiven something, or maybe it was the way no one tried to make it perfect. The pews were uneven, the wooden floor creaked, and the flowers, simple wildflowers and eucalyptus, leaned slightly in their mason jars. But everything breathed. Nothing felt staged. Maya sat at the back in the wide space just beyond the threshold, her wheels locked, palms pressed lightly to the arms of her chair, her dress, altered, honest, folded over her legs like it belonged, not heavy, not dragging, just right. People were turning in their seats, heads tilted, waiting. But no one stared, no one whispered. This wasn't about spectacle. It wasn't even about tradition anymore. It was about her, choosing to show up. Ben stood beside her, one hand tucked into his pocket, the other holding a bouquet not meant to be carried by a bride, but offered to one. He looked down at her, steady and still, his presence the same way it had always been, never demanding, never loud, just there, solid. "You ready?" he asked. Maya didn't answer at first. She looked down the aisle at the long stretch of wood, the delicate runner that Ellie had laid out that morning with too much tape and a serious face. It wasn't the aisle she'd imagined, but it was real. Sunlight pooled at the end of it, waiting. She inhaled slowly, held it for a breath too long, then nodded. "Let's do it." Ben offered his arm, not awkwardly, not as a helper, but as a companion. She rested her hand there lightly, and together they moved forward. Each push of the wheels was hers. Each step beside her was his. People didn't clap. They didn't need to. The hush in the room was louder than any applause could have been. Maya kept her eyes forward, but she felt everything, the air, the weight of her own heartbeat, the sound of Ellie sniffling somewhere in the front row. She didn't cry, not because it didn't mean everything, but because she'd already grieved the life that didn't happen. This was the one she'd built, from what survived. The first notes of the piano were soft, hesitant even, just a single melody drifting through the sanctuary, like it was unsure if it was supposed to be heard. There were no violins, no choir, just that one clear sound echoing gently off the wood-paneled walls and dusty hymnals. It was enough. Maya gripped the wheels lightly, her palms dry but trembling. She didn't look at the faces turned toward her. She didn't need to. What she felt wasn't a crowd. It was weight. It was history. And it was hope. Ben stood at her side, one hand steadying the handle of her chair, not tight, not controlling, just there. His other hand rested over hers for a moment, grounding her, silent in the way only someone who truly knew her grief could be. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Ellie stepped ahead, her little white dress fluttering around her knees, curls bouncing with each step. She clutched the basket of petals like it was the most important job anyone had ever given her. And maybe it was. Her hand shook as she reached in, grabbing a fistful, then remembered to slow down. The petals scattered awkwardly, too many at once, then too few, but they made a trail, one that shimmered faintly on the old wood floor like confetti from a life that didn't go as planned. The wheels rolled forward. Ben moved with her, slowly, deliberate. His pace matched hers, not rushed, not dragging, just together. Each creak of the chair echoed like a heartbeat. Every push brought her closer to something she hadn't dared to believe in again. She caught sight of the altar ahead, not grand, just a table draped in linen, a single vase of wildflowers beside two joined candles. It wasn't the image she used to picture when she dreamed of forever, but it was the one that had made its way through the storm. She felt her throat tighten, but she didn't stop. Not for the music, not for the petals, not even for the weight in her chest that felt suspiciously like joy. Ben leaned slightly toward her, just enough that she could hear him. "Almost there," he said. And she believed him. The silence was complete, the kind that settled into people's bones, the kind that didn't ask for attention. It already had it. Maya sat just in front of the altar, the sunlight catching the edge of her shoulder where the lace of her dress had slipped ever so slightly. Her fingers rested gently in her lap, the bouquet already set aside, forgotten. What she was holding now couldn't be carried in flowers. No one else spoke, not the officiant, not Ben, who stood just behind her, hands clasped in front of him, like he knew this part belonged only to her. Maya took a slow breath, felt it fill her, anchor her. Then she looked up, not just at the person standing across from her, but at everyone. The church wasn't full, but it was enough. Neighbors, friends, the people who had watched her fall apart and not looked away. Her voice shook at first, but she didn't stop. When I woke up in that hospital bed, the first thing I felt was the weight of everything I'd lost, my legs, my career, the man who swore he'd never leave. She paused. The words hung like dust in the light, suspended in truth. I thought that was the end of me. I thought I'd been stripped of everything that mattered, that there was no version of my life worth coming back for. Ellie blinked hard in the front row, clutching a crumpled petal in her small fist. Sienna sat beside her, one hand over her heart. Maya's gaze swept the room once more, then landed on Ben. He didn't move, just met her eyes like he always had, with steadiness, not rescue. "I thought I lost everything," she said, quieter now, "but I only lost what couldn't stay." Her breath hitched, but she steadied it. What remained, what grew in the cracks, that's mine. That's what I choose today. Not perfection, not fantasy, but the life that found me when I wasn't looking. The people who stayed, the strength I never thought I'd need. She let the moment sit, let it settle. Then, softly, she added, "That's my vow." And it was. The reception wasn't fancy, just string lights and folding chairs in the church courtyard, tables draped in linen that didn't quite match, wildflowers in mason jars, and paper lanterns that swayed in the early evening breeze. The air smelled like lemon cake and damp grass, like something sweet and grounded. People milled about, talking softly, passing plates. But the music hadn't started yet. Maya sat off to the side, beneath one of the old oak trees, watching it all unfold. The laughter, the way the sunlight poured over the gravel like a blessing. She hadn't expected this part to be the hardest, not the vows, not the aisle, but now here, where music meant movement and movement once meant her body belonged on a dance floor, the ache returned, not loud, not bitter, just there. She looked at her hands folded in her lap, then at the quiet space where couples were gathering, hesitating, waiting for a cue that hadn't come. Then Ellie appeared. No fanfare, no announcement, just a little girl in a flower-crowned braid and grass-stained shoes, walking up and reaching out with the kind of confidence only children seem to have. "Want to dance?" she asked, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Maya laughed, but it caught halfway. "You don't mind dancing with wheels?" Ellie's grin was pure mischief. "Wheels make it cooler." So Maya rolled forward, slow, careful, the chair gliding across the brick path as the first song began, soft guitar and a voice full of rasp and truth. Ellie twirled beside her, arms wide, spinning in imperfect circles. She bumped into Maya once, giggled, and kept going. There was no rhythm to it, not really, just joy, just presence. Then Ben stepped forward. He didn't ask. He just joined them. One hand resting lightly on the back of her chair, the other slipping into hers. And they swayed. Together, back and forth, like wind through tall grass. Nothing rehearsed, nothing choreographed. The town watched from their tables, some with tears, others with quiet smiles. No one said a word. Because sometimes the most powerful moments don't shout. They hum, quiet, software new. And there, beneath the lights and the weight of everything they'd survived, Maya danced again. The house was quiet when they got back, the kind of quiet that holds its breath after something big. The windows glowed faintly in the dark, their warm light spilling out over the porch like a promise. The dress still clung to her hips, now wrinkled and spotted with cake frosting Ellie had smeared on her during the last song. Her hair was coming loose, but she didn't mind. She didn't want to take any of it off yet. Not the lace, not the scent of wildflowers, not the feeling that something in her life had finally come back to stay. As she rolled up the ramp, her hands brushing the rails that had once felt like surrender and now felt like triumph, she saw him, Ben, already sitting in the porch chair like he'd been waiting for her before she even left the reception. His jacket was slung over the armrest, sleeves rolled to his elbows. A chipped mug steamed in his hand. He looked over when he heard her wheels. No smile, no words, just that steady gaze, the one she had come to understand didn't mean silence. It meant presence. She paused at the top of the ramp and took it all in, the porch, the quiet, him. "You beat me home," she said softly. He held up the mug. "Didn't think you'd mind." She shook her head and rolled forward until she was beside him. The boards creaked under her chair. He poured the rest of his coffee into the second cup sitting beside him and passed it to her. It was still hot, still strong. They sat there for a while like that, saying nothing, sipping quietly, letting the night settle around them like dust after a storm. Then, finally, she turned to him, voice barely above a whisper. "You built more than a ramp, you know." He looked at her, eyes darker now in the low porch light, but still steady, still kind. "Yeah," he said after a long moment, "I know." And neither of them said what it really meant, that he'd built a way back, that she'd let him, that some things don't get rebuilt all at once. Sometimes they begin on a porch, in the quiet, under a light that someone left on just in case.